In the winter of 2013, I found myself in Peetabeck, a Mushkegowuk Cree community on the western shores of James Bay in northern Ontario. There I met a remarkable man named Edmund Metatawabin. I spent a couple of days with Edmund, who had actually grown up in a sustainable way of life that had endured for 10,000 years before the arrival of European colonists. A lot of us talk about sustainability, but Edmund had lived it. Then, at 8, he was wrenched from his family and taken into the unspeakable misery of the local residential school. As an adult and a university graduate, he became an advisor to the University of Alberta on Aboriginal matters. He was studying for his MA in Environmental Studies when his community asked him to come home, where he served as chief for 8 years. He has since become a small businessman and an author. His novel, Hanaway, has passages of heartbreaking power. And he is a healer not only of individuals, but of a whole community. My time with Edmund was genuinely transformative. I understand some things that have long eluded me, and I will never relate to the world in the same way again. My producer wasn't with me, and I hadn't intended to do a green interview. But when I realized what an astonishing body of knowledge and wisdom Edmund was sharing with me, I pulled out my own video camera and recorded this green interview myself. Edmund and I covered an enormous range of subjects: the nature of community, the cycle of the Aboriginal year, land tenure, the community's long-term values and its sense of time, the gift economy, the importance of elders, relationships with the whole web of life, relationships with the entities that surrounded the people, a first-hand account of the horror of the residential schools, and much more. So this green interview is quite unlike most others, but I value it very highly. I invite you to listen to part of a 2-day conversation that literally changed my life. Edmund, thank you very much for doing this. I want to start with the land. That's where everything starts. We're talking here about I want to find out about a way of life that went back 10,000 years and was perfectly sustainable. And maybe we can start with the cycle of the year, because the year and the land formed the lives of the people.
Yeah. Well, I think we can start with about this time, February, when we always said, my dad always said nakatin, which is the end of freezing and the beginning of thaw. So it will no longer freeze anymore. So February 14th, about that time, and it starts to get warm. That's when people are now beginning to say, okay, winter is over, now we can prepare for the summer, for the spring. Yeah. And what first do you think about that when the land is going to thaw? What's going to bring the geese? And so the geese are going to be arriving soon. The caribou has been gotten, so the caribou will be sort of going into the highlands, away from the marsh, because it's too spongy. They're going to solid ground a little bit. And so get ready for the spring, get ready for the geese. And spring is a magical time, very magical. If you had a classroom of kids and you're teaching a lesson and you hear, huh? All the kids would just jump and ignore everything was going on and run to the window. And that's how the geese is, the goose is very strong, both in terms of sustenance and some emotional rejuvenation or reminder of that they're from the land, that this is your savior, this is somebody that feeds you, to your spirit and your body. So that's spring, and everybody gets ready for that, and there's tons of things to do. Everybody's trying to get, today it's a skidoo. You got to get your skidoo ready, you got to get your sled ready. It's got the box on your sled has to be sturdy, and because you're going to be carrying a lot of stuff, your decoys, your axe, your chainsaw, whatever it is you have to carry. And everybody's just busy, and there's no time for foolishness. You're gotta get, if you're gonna get geese, if you're going to be successful, if you're going to feed grandma and your other kin, you better be good and ready. And people can stand in the blind from early morning before sunrise, because the geese like to come just before sunrise. And so they're arriving at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. The hunter is already there, all set and ready. He's already eaten, he's got a thermos there, and he's ready. And he will stay with a few breaks here and there till the sun goes down. Because again, the geese like to come when the sun is going down. They need a place to settle for the night. They need a resting place. So if you see the decoys, and they're facing the wind, then they know that's it's probably a good place for them. So they come there. So the hunter is there 12 hours a day.
Well,
Maybe not every day,
yes,
but
yes, yes.
12 hours a day.
In the traditional cycle, are the people living there, or are they still back up in their winter camps? Not today, but in your youth.
Well, everybody's still on the land in the old days. So everybody's still on the land. And along our river, Kistachowan Sipi, they call it the Albany River now. And it's, say, the distance of from here to up to 300 miles up. And they say there's tributaries, maybe every 30 miles there's a major tributary. There's a clan there. There's a family living there. And this is where they harvest. They don't want to live too close or too crowded. They won't be too crowded, because that will stress the supply of wood, food, rabbit, and etc., etc. So they want to space themselves out over a large area. And the clan lives together, and they're in charge of that tributary. And you can't go up that tributary if you're not a clan member. To go past the village and go up that river, you can't really do that, because the source of water is very sacred. You're not supposed to go there and contaminate the water supply. So the water is coming off from the Mushkegowuk and replenished by the rain or melting ice. The water comes down, and that's treated. That's the clan community are very, very positive that that's good water.
Does the clan itself go up the river? Or
Actually, there's no reason to go up on that creek. And if they go up, they're very careful. If you are situated upriver, let's say on the main channel, or any water body that's with the water that's moving up and down, you have the biggest responsibility, and that is not to contaminate. If you contaminate the system with garbage, refuse, or fuel, or anything, you're going to hurt somebody. And that was very, very frowned upon in the old days when the elders were in charge. They, treat everybody with respect.
so how is it decided which clans get which locations?
They've been there. They've been there for a while. And that's the clan that were there from the beginning. And it's just recognized. I can't go into the Apamat territory because it's a Spence. Even though I'm related with them, it's still a Spence clan. And if I want to go there, I have to let them know. I'm going to be stopping at your place. I'm going to stop at Apamat for a while. And they'll say, okay, that's fine. We're going to get some fish too. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Get some fish. And get as much as you want, or whatever it is. So it's out of respect, and it's out of acknowledgement that that's their territory. So
Territories ever change? Anyone ever move, or territories become vacant?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we all migrate. It's the land changes continuously, and if we look back to the colder climate when ice covered the land, of course we were somewhere else. And as the ice retreated, the people move to places that are exposed, like land. So our stories go back to when they told us we came from the island of giants. So they called it Island of Giants. And the Caribou still use that island, which is a high land just north of here, under the Polar Bear Park. So it's about, let's say, 200 miles from here, 250 miles from here. A ridge of highlands and exposed rock and lots of clean water. So even the caribou still go there, and it's part of their history too, the migration journey, that they're still there. So we came from that area. One time the people said, well, I think it's the water is getting away from us, because the water is going down, and it sort of seems to be retreating towards Hudson Bay and James Bay. So the people left and said, let's go where the water is, follow the water. And they went to the Hudson Bay first, and then they arrived and saw the big waves crashing, and said, well, let's just walk along the shore. So they drifted down James Bay, followed the shore of James Bay, and at each river system they stopped for a while until some people decided to cross the river and keep going south. And maybe some people stayed at that river. So they would just leave a group there and continue until they arrived down in the southern edge of James Bay. So those stories tell us that they used to cross the big rivers and make themselves a big raft and just ferry everybody across. So yeah, there's movement. There's always movement.
I guess what I'm thinking about is that there really was an organized system of land tenure. This clan had these lands, and the other clan had these lands. Doesn't sound as if there was much disagreement about where the boundaries were. The boundaries were maybe a little bit flexible, but everybody respected them.
Because everybody had a reason for being in that land. We relied on them to be there when it was time to need their services. So if, say, people came to James Bay, near the bay waters, so in the summertime for social activities, get away from the mosquitoes, and help the young people meet each other, sort of to mix everybody up, and maybe just to harvest fish and a waterfall.
So that's taking us forward through the cycle of the year again. So you've had your winter in the winter camps on the tributaries.
That's spring, yeah. And people move from their land holdings. So the family that's furthest away would probably decide, okay, we're going to go now, while there's still people downriver, so that we can stop and share our food with them, or they can share food with us. It's always that interchange of food. You can have some food, help yourself. And there's never any sort of money kind of it's just sort of, what is money? It's insubstantial, or it has really no identity, except that it's a piece of paper with a number on it. But if you give me something one day, and the following day I might get something, and I'll be back to give it, pay back. So it's this sort of an exchange kind of idea.
It's almost like you just made an investment by sharing, an investment for when your needs arise.
That's a good way of saying it, because the economic system is the economic philosophy of our people. The health of your neighbor, the health of your fellow man is an investment for your survival for the future. So it's more important to keep somebody healthy, because somebody will look after you, because they want you to be healthy also. So you raise everybody up, you elevate everybody, at the same time as you elevate yourself. It's always that exchange and sharing.
Now that gesture you just made with your hands is an old gesture, isn't it? It's a gesture that says, we hold you up, but it comes naturally into your hands.
We hold you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the I guess economic policy.
Yeah, but
It's-
it comes
it's-
naturally into your hands when you speak about it, which is
Well,
kind
you
of
have
nice,
to.
yeah.
I don't think you can look at your neighbor and watch them suffer.
Yeah.
You have to run there and help them,
Mm.
because you don't want to have somebody injured and watch them get worse and worse and worse, because one injury will keep a lot of people occupied.
Mhm.
Too many people are occupied to take care of an injured individual. But everybody's healthy, then everybody can do other stuff more constructive. So,
Okay, so you've spent the winter up inland, and now you've come back down, basically from the top on down the river, from the highest clan first, and then the additional clans to the coast in the spring, in time for the goose hunt.
yeah.
It sounds like a very sociable way of doing things. You arrive at the first clan and spend some time there, and then you go to the second one, which by now has gotten up theirs and got its own trap ready. So it's almost like going up a ladder of friendship from clan to clan as you go back up the river.
Well, you're still hunting in your area during the spring hunt, because everybody in their place, they're waiting for the geese. So you harvest as much as you can. As you get the geese, you are preparing them, preserving them, and and storing them, and putting them in containers. You're going to be feeding the people down there, because you need a lot of food. So when everything is done, the spring is now over. Now it's the geese are sort of finished. They're passing over your area, and so now it's pluck the geese, save the feathers, save the big ones, the down, save that into another place. Maybe make some blankets, and but carry as much as you can to the community. And now it's summer. Now that's when you're sitting down. There's going to be a lot of dancing. There's going to be socializing. There's going to be music. There's going to be all kinds of things. And you're just basically unwinding from the cold and relaxing and sharing adventures, sharing the conditions of the land, the climate, the animals, and so you're just catching up. And so that happens in the summertime, and you're also harvesting the fish, so you're eating the fish. And you're all basically just finishing the food that you've been collecting from the spring. Now you're going into the summer, another source of food. So those are fish. And you go in the fall. Now things are changing again. It's going to be cold. So now it's time to go up the river. So you're fixing, you're getting gum from spruce gum. You're going to fix your boat, fix the leaks, because you're going to have a long trip. And sort of fixing this and that and getting ready to go up. Getting your, you've left your traps up there. So there's no trap carrying all that stuff. Everything is at the clan, I call them the clan holdings or dwellings. And so you're going to be going up. The people that go up first are the ones that are closest to the community. It's close enough for them. And their job is to go and get ready for the people that will be traveling up.
Further up.
Further up. And they will fix their fish traps. So the fish trap is set, and they're just now waiting for the people to be passing by. And when the people are passing by, they will stop at the place. They've done other years. They've always done this. And the owners will say, well, the fish trap, Mitchiskan, that's the word for it. Mitchiskan is ready, so just help yourself and take as many as you can. And we'll have supper tonight, stuff like that. So you're just basically being helped by people until you arrive at your area. And you're just confirming to yourself that, oh, the family is setting up again. Oh, that's good. I feel better. Because I know if I get in trouble, I will just come down the river and find them. You know where everybody is. It's just confirmation. that everybody's in place.
Yeah. How do you ensure that you don't take too much as a community?
Your boat tips over.
Okay.
You go yeah, it's just, I think it's a matter of faith. You have to be really honest with yourself, and you just sort of indicate to yourself that I trust my ability, and I trust my skill, and I have faith enough on the land and the spiritual life that I will get something, and that I will get something when I need it. So I'm just going to get something that will help me travel maybe a couple of days up, because in the meantime I will be getting enough on the way. And you're always harvesting.
Yeah.
And if you have faith in yourself, I think that helps.
There's got to be a deep self-confidence about that. Or
Yeah.
Not self-confidence entirely, but confidence in your situation and your ability to deal with it.
Yeah, I think if you don't have confidence, I think there will be a little bit of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's fear, then there's too many things in your head. But you're going to fall in the water, my boat would break, I'm going to hit a rock, it's going to be windy. You're always anticipating the misfortune of things. And if you spend too much on the misfortune of things that could conceivably happen, you're just sitting in one spot thinking of all these things too much. But if you just say, we'll find out, If somebody says, I think it's going to be a lot of snow this year, we'll find out. We're going anyway. That's not going to stop me. There's a tornado coming, and it might wipe. But you can't anticipate misfortune. You just proceed. You just do it, and you carry on. And if the tornado hits you, it hits you. Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anywhere you can run to ignore something that was supposed to happen to you. I don't think that, but that's another one of our things too, that you just have to carry on, walk the road, and see what happens.
A lot of people, if they were set down in this situation today, even if they were just told, go and live up the river 100 miles, would be terrified.
Yeah.
I get the feeling there was very little fear of any kind in the way you've described the lives of the people.
You look forward to going on your land.
Mm-hmm.
It's your home. Mm-hmm. Everything is there. All your equipment is there, and you know how much the resources are around, including animals. Mm-hmm. And originally, there was no pressure to get animals. If you had a chance to fish, there's rabbit tracks all over the place. You don't set up 20 snares and try and get 20 each day. I don't think that's conceivable. If there's a lot of rabbit around, and maybe one is enough. Mm-hmm. That's all you need. Mm-hmm. And if you get one rabbit, well, that's good. That's good enough. But if there's a time of scarceness on the land, and not enough rabbits, then you try and cover as much ground and put 20 snares in different places. But you just get what you need. Yeah.
The idea of enough seems to be one that's kind of lost.
It's enough means what is it that you want out of life? It's comfort. You just carry on and look at the condition of your children. The dogs that are being tied up on this side, and they used to all be tied up very close to the house, and they had their own little shelter, which they would use, and they would have their own little hole that they was covered with spruce boughs. They always had spruce boughs. And you take the old spruce boughs every once in a while, put fresh ones in. And they would have that little hollow, a little circular hollow where the dogs was sleeping in. You freshen that up. And the spruce boughs in their little shelter, you freshen that up too every once in a while. If you got too messy, just clean that area, or maybe change their location a little bit. Yeah, there were things done.
Yeah. Tell me about the actual shelters for the people. What would a camp house look like?
They carried tents when tents were available. Originally, it was either the wigwam shape, a teepee shape, or the the triangular one. And it was made of caribou hide. So the caribou hide could be as soft as this material. And it was windproof. It was warmer. They say it was warmer when you use it and keep the fire going. And so that's one shelter. It is caribou hide. And there's another one used on a more permanent basis from the fall to last through the winter and until spring. Then you switch to another form of shelter, which is again back to the caribou hide shelter. And the mud house. A mud house, you get a round tree, maybe 10 inches in diameter, split it in half, and put the circular part on the outside, and the shiny split end facing inwards. So it provides a little bit of light for the interior. And you make a conical shape with that and fix up the hole at the top for the smoke, and then cover it up with black dirt and until all the way to the top, and then the snow will fall on that and makes a very warm dwelling for the winter. Mm-hmm. As long as you don't leave it. If you're not living in a central heating kind of place with a steady supply of heat, you have to stay there. There's always somebody there. Granny's going to be there, Dad's going to be there, somebody's going to be there, Auntie's going to be there to keep the fire going. Mm-hmm. And so they keep the fire going because if you leave that place, the cold will invade the interior. The floor will become ice. So it is sort of a cave kind of concept. So if you stay there, it's going to be really comfortable. But if you go, it's not going to be comfortable afterwards.
Yeah, you'll never get it back to what it was.
No, never. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be bad for the kids that are in the house, babies that are in the house. It gets cold. Mm-hmm.
And the whole family's living there. We're talking about several generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's you make a fresh one every year.
Okay.
Yeah, you make a fresh one. You can't use a mud house from last year because the mold has taken over the interior.
Yeah.
There's maybe a lot of stale air that collected over the summer, so you don't use that again, and you sort of start in another place.
Quite a lot of work to do that every year.
Work is a concept that's sort of, is it something like breathing? You breathe in and out, but it's something that you do. And work is not is something that say, I'm gonna have to do this.
Yeah.
Well, if that's hard for you, you don't have to do it, but suffer the consequences. Mm-hmm. But if you want to have a good, comfortable house for your kids, then it's something that you do. Mm-hmm. Because besides, your partner's going to help you. Everybody's going to help you. Yeah. And again, this is a social thing. It's things that you do together.
That strikes me, that one of the features of the life you lived as a young person is that it was always social. It was always people doing things together. Is that right?
Yeah. There's very seldom an opportunity for people to sit down and work together. Mm-hmm. Because everybody's busy trying to do their own thing. They're busy making a sled or making snowshoes or doing all kinds of things, things that you do on your own. If there's an opportunity to work together, oh wow, that brings everybody up. And you're telling stories and you're laughing and that's all we hear is people yelling and laughing and just doing things together. Do it this way, bring some more, we're ready here, stuff like that. So it's nice to hear that communal sound for us as as children, because it reaffirms where you are. If you feel happy, then this is what you do. Yeah.
Somewhere in Hanaway, You talk about laughter as being a healing thing, a thing that brings people together, a consciousness about what laughter actually means and what it can do.
You encourage other people to laugh, and you do all kinds of things to make people laugh. And it is the job of the nephew or the teenager to be the clown of the dwelling and of the community. And there's always somebody that's joking around and making people laugh and teasing the girls, teasing the aunts, the ladies, and get everybody going. And there's always dancing. Dancing has always been part of life in the village, and the dancing and singing and just singing hymns, spiritual songs. They did all that. And I heard all those things when I was in the bush. It's sort of just you uplift yourself, you uplift your spirit so it doesn't sink down. So every once in a while you got to uplift yourself and sing. And sing to somebody, because you're not alone. You confirm that over and over again. We're not alone. We're not alone. There's somebody else there. And you pray every night. There's a prayer every night. Yeah.
What kind of a prayer would that be? This is long before the missionaries that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, the traditionally would be sort of the hand drum. You use the hand drum to sing, and then you tell legends. There's for the children it would be Chakabish and all the different adventures of Chakabish. So there's for the little kids just before bedtime. But for the teenagers, there's Hanoi, and that's why I use Hanoi in my book, because it's the life of a teenager, and just coming into young adulthood. And after that, it's older adults, Wemishus. Wemishus is an elderly person that refuses to acknowledge their age. They still think that they can do teenager stuff. That's illicit laughter again, just to put Wemishus in a situation where, well, there he goes again. He wants to do that. He thinks he can do that. So stuff like that. And finally, for the elders and for the people that are into the wisdom age, they have Wisagachek, and those are mythology, history, teaching, and just sort of the land. Why is that land look like that? Why is that hill there? Why is it shaped like that? What's the meaning of that? So the Wisagachak explains all those things. And, we have a lot of landmarks on the land, and they were there, and so each character has those has a function for parts of the culture, members of the culture.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you talk about them, we started talking about prayers, but they're also stories. They're also instructions about what you should do and shouldn't do at appropriate parts of your life. If you're old, you behave older, that kind of thing. So it's a very rich and complex form of communication.
It's legends to keep you reminded of how old the society is, how old the culture is. And they had, like I said, the legends, and then they had the shaking tent. It's a very sacred ceremony, and there's a lot of meaning to that. And sometimes we hesitate, even today, about sharing what goes on in there, for fear that we might look like we're magicians or into witchcraft or into other kinds of things. But in my time with these ceremonies, like I said, the shaking tent, the night lodge, the sweat lodge, and I haven't gone to the Sundance, but each time that we participate in these ceremonies, we interact with entities from the other side. And not just a mixture of entities that will come in. There's an entity for the moose, for the fish, for the lichen, for the tree, for the goose. they all have an entity that will speak on their behalf. The turtle is the interpreter for everybody. That will speak for the goose, and it will speak for me, and it will enable everybody to understand each other. And I've had communication that I heard something within the ceremony wasn't meant for me, but so I don't understand what's going on. I just hear a voice and say, I can't hear it. I can't really understand what the entity is saying. But then there are times where the voices become very clear. Now I know that's for me. And that's my message. And if a person's sitting beside me when it's my message, they will also just hear garble, and you know, just sound, but won't be able to understand. And even if to the point where the entity will say, "I'm talking to you," you can feel fingers poking you and say, "It's you I'm talking to," and that for us, and that's where I say it gets to be a little bit, you know, for us, we hesitate about sharing that thing, and we look at the society in general and say, okay, they're on that plane, and I'm on this one. And I say, I wonder if there will ever be a break in that barrier, because between the land-based people who still feel the effects on the land, communication from the land, and if you can hear the fish talking in the ceremony, that fish is from the land, and they will express remind you of guidelines that are not being followed or should be followed, or the purpose of you is to follow these things. And some other entity will say, you know, just I'm talking to you, you got to be more forceful in providing guidance to the young people. So they tell you, they give you instructions on what you should be doing. It's just a reminder. And or they will generally speak to the whole group and say, I think there's a little bit too much drinking, so stuff like that. It's just a reminder to everybody that things to watch out for, things that you should not do, things that you should do, and maybe they will tell you a bit about the future, what's coming up, let's get ready for, and they will say there's a new strain of flu coming in. So what you should do is, before the flu arrives in the community or in the region, get over to the muskeg. Go to the muskeg, and that small tree there with the cones at the top, harvest those cones, bring them home, and gently prepare them, and they will tell you the formula for doing that. And so now, from the resulting mixture or liquid that you get, then give it to the young people, give it to the babies, infants, and also the elders. So they will tell you what to do in that. So they look. There's always somebody to look after you. And how can you be afraid? And how can you lose faith when somebody is there? You know somebody is there. You've heard somebody, you know, and you felt the presence of somebody. And so sometimes we're afraid to share that because it sounds a little bit, you know, different.
yeah. No, I understand that.
It sounds a little bit strange. Yeah.
But it works. And if it works, that's the key.
And I think if you look at people, like I'm not saying that everybody that uses it is perfect, but if you use it well, if you use it a little bit, not overdo anything, and just, you know, just use it when you feel you need it, regenerate yourself. Everybody has to regenerate.
As you talk about this, and as you talk about time and the country and the land that you're in and so on, it seems to me that this culture gives people a good, profound sense of belonging, you know? Belonging within the human context, belonging within the spiritual context, belonging within the natural context. that you're located here, but you've got webs of connection with almost everything around you at almost every level. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This, like I said, the legends tell you that you've been here for a long time. The mythology explains the landforms that sometimes that we see, the names of the rivers, the names of the lakes, and even there's just names that explain an event of significance for people. And you say, why is that called Coast River? Well, that's the place where something happened a long time ago. There was a battle there, and a big number of people were defeated, and since they fell in the water, maybe their bones are scattered all around the area. So it's called Ghost River because of what happened. It's got that name. What about Nest Island? Well, Nest Island might indicate that it's. Remember when the two people broke the laws of the community, of the compound or whatever, wherever the size of the community was. They were banished from the community, and because of that banishment, they left. They just continued. They traveled until they met somebody, the Great Spider, keeper of the gate. Now we're going very far away. And keeper of the gate, the spider told them about this new earth, new place to live, the lower world. The Great Spider calls it the lower world. And so that must be the upper world where they were from. So the Great Spider talks about this lower world, and the couple says, well, there happened to be man and woman that were banished, and they say, can we go there? And then the Great Spider says, well, it's kind of rough. It's kind of rough. Jack, who's making the world, is sort of struggling with the rainfall or the winds, or everything is still a little rough. Yeah, but I can help you get down there. I can make a little platform, and I can put my web there and lower you down into the lower world. And that's a big, long story. But in the end, the couple decides, okay, we're going to go down there, and because we can't ever go back into the community again, that we can start over again. And so they come down into the lower world from the upper. So again, the sort of migration. And they start over again, and it's a new life. So when they're making that, the island is called Nest Island, because when those two people were coming down into the lower world, they were placed in a platform with webbing to bring him down, to sort of put him down. So they're told, okay, now stay down. Don't look around, because you're going to hear wind. It's going to be all noisy and windy and strange things happening. But don't look out. Don't look out, and you'll be fine. And so that they're going down, and finally they hear all this stuff. It's moving around, and they're blowing, and they say, "Where are we? Where are we?" And he says, "I don't know, but don't look around. Don't look out." And but where are we? What's that noise? What's that? And finally, one of them looks out, which was a no-no. They're not supposed to look. Right. And so they, because of that, they land on a nest. They land on an eagle's nest. Fortunately, it was empty, and so they look down, and the eagle's nest, is at the highest tree, sort of semi-dead, or at least I think it's dead, because there's no bark. It's just smooth tree. There's no footholds. There's no handholds. No way for them to come down. They look down, and the nest is big, and the tree is sort of straight down. And so that's why the Nest Island.
'Cause that's the first difficulty in the lower world.
That's yeah, and that's why they call that the Nest Island, based on that legend of the nest,
Oh yeah.
because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
round.
sure.
The nest is round
Yes.
in the
yes.
middle of a, could be the river. So there's an island up there. When you go up, oh, that looks like a nest, perfectly round. From this side, in the trees, it looks like a nest. So they call it Nest Island.
This is where they landed.
That's where the spot was. That's where they landed. Yeah, and so they start calling animals. Call the caribou. Caribou says, "No, I can't. I'm not. I don't have claws. I can't climb. I'm not climbing." And it's called a squirrel. And it's, "Oh no, I'm too small. I'm too small.
Yeah.
I'm too small. I can't. Too high for me too." And they said, "I don't climb that." And they call somebody else. Wolverine. Wolverine was not too helpful. And finally, a bear ignored them at first, and so the bear walks away. Just completely ignores him. Walks away, and then says, "Oh, poor kids," and just turns around and says, "Okay," just very slowly walks up, takes him down. And then the couple they hang around with the bear, and the bear says, "Well, you can sleep. Find yourself a hole in the ground that's dry, and the perfect cave." It just shows them how to find a dry one and a safe one, and so you can sleep in there. And so they say, "Okay, you can eat the berries, but don't eat these ones. They're sort of poisonous. Eat these ones and do this and that." And so the bear was the one to teach the humans how to live on the land. Because like you said, it was kind of rough environment and all that. So the bear was the first teacher. And that's where we feel a kinship to the bear. Because our first parent.
Yeah.
Because only two people arrived at the beginning, and so it was our first teacher. So that again tells you, yeah, we were placed here by somebody, the Great Spider, and just to discover another way of life.
You feel you're in the middle of a web that extends spiritually and economically and in terms of the flow of time and all that sort of thing,
Well, the two people were very important that they began life down here. So once the village discovered that they went down to the lower world, more people wanted to come down. It was the Great Spider that helped them, and you can sort of visualize the Great Spider what it looks like. Big body, legs.
Yeah.
So it looks like a spaceship if you think of it far enough or crazily enough. And up there, down to here. You're migrating down here, and that.
So this is the lower
that is
world
a
that we're
legend.
in now, right?
This is the lower world.
Yeah.
And so, because all you have is to look up, and everything is up here. Everything is up, and you're down here. So it's just something that exists, and for all this old stories, and the stories of characters in the community. Remember this. Remember Peponeso, what we used to do. Just things like that, and you want to be like Peponeso. Kistachowan used to make all kinds of mistakes, and just part of his teaching was to make mistakes and make fun of himself and look like a fool. And so you don't want to be like that. So everything is sort of finding a place. What's my place in this culture? What can I do for Granny, so Granny can be proud of me, and my great Urchaban, great grandparents. What can I do for them to be proud of me? So all those relations are really close by, and you have no room to get in trouble because they're going to frown on you. And that's the worst kind of people to be frowned on, is your own kin. and especially Chaban. And the Anaskochaban is the great-great-grandparents, and that's the 5th generation. They're the ones with the strict face and the, behave yourself. So you're part of it. You're part of that culture, and you're supposed to do great things to make them smile. And that's what you want to do. You want to make them smile.
Well, yeah,
You're really located in the flow of time, aren't you? You're really conscious of the way time unfolds. You have a certain role at certain times and other roles at other times. And it sounds as though that's very calm, too. It's not... It's a natural unfolding of your life.
Yeah, it's a natural unfolding of your life. So you look at the older people, you want to be like that, and they remind you that look after your kids, look after your home. And another old laws was a man cannot take a spouse until they're 30. So that's an old law. Or for the women, women will not think about that kind of activity until they're 20. So by that time, the woman has enough lessons from auntie, from granny, from everybody in relations, other people, that they know enough about. They've seen enough. They've changed babies. They've made a caribou hide. They've know how to design a dancing outfit, and they know where to get stuff. They know where to get medicine. They've been shown enough, so that once they take their own house, then they have enough skill. They can do it now. Just on the chance that they happen to go in their own area, then they will manage to look after the whole house. But that's an old law. And for the young man, it says, okay, you know the law, you know you're not supposed to get a maid until you're 30. In the meantime, by that time, you should have. You should be able to build a house, a shelter for your family. You should be able to make equipment, weapons, boat, any other utensils. You should be able to track a moose. Should be able to read the stars in the sky. You should be knowledgeable enough so that once you get a mate, you make your own shelter, and within that's your sacred fire. So as you form your own shelter, that is the sacred fire. And we call it sacred fire because the joining of two people to create a family.
that is the sacred fire.
Create love. Out of love, each child is a flame.
Okay. Okay, so yeah,
That is the sacred fire? So the sacred fire actually is the love between the two people.
Between two people.
That's the symbolic.
I've seen that phrase and I've never quite known what it was.
So it's a kind of two individuals will share love and just carry from there.
It's a wonderful concept, isn't it?
It's a reminder. It's just a reminder, and I suppose within that kind of setting, if you see people following it, it's a constant reminder for you. It's a guideline for you to follow.
What strikes me about the whole way of life and the whole way of being in the world is that it's just profoundly integrated. I mean, you don't... Well, let me take one example, and that's education, which we've talked quite a lot about and became one of the big weapons against this way of life. But there's profoundly educational characteristics to everything you do, to the whole way you live your lives. But it's not split off like you've got to go to school now and get an education. Education is just part of your own development. It's a natural piece of growing up. You're curious, people are happy to tell you. That's it. That's the educational process.
If you take away the great-great-grandparents, then that's when you begin to sort of wonder. If you take away the grandparents, then you're a little bit more afraid. But if you take the parents away, then that's when you're totally alone. There is no teacher. There is no immediate teacher. And we say that the parents are the ones who raise the child using guidelines they acquired from their own parents. And the grandparents are the ones who give us love, and who give us they'll sit on their knee, they'll teach us to pray, they will show how to do this, to patience, sew it carefully, and do things carefully. Okay, do it again, do it again. So they'll give us a lot of patience, a lot of love, and a lot of laughter, a lot of story. So you feel safe with them. The great parents, then that's you have sort of been blessed to see them, because they're so powerful, and what they give you is a gentleness, very, very, very gentle. And if you ever felt a gentle hand on your cheek, then you know gentleness. And so that's what they represent. Much kindness and love and gentleness. So that sort of gives you the meaning of what a family is, and what you should be trying to achieve. Yeah. So that's the old setting.
How long did people live? You're talking here about 4 generations being quite normal.
Yeah. 5. The 5th generation is normal. Yeah. How long did they live?
That's getting on for 100 years, isn't it? The 5th generation?
Let's say a person 90 years old, if they were still a man and wife or a couple, they could still try and go on the land. They're 90. They moved as long as they're able to move. No matter how slow they're moving, they're still on the land. And even if you make 5 miles in one day, wow, that's lots for people that are old age. But it doesn't mean anything, right? What difference does 5 days make to you? You're gonna get there eventually to where you're going, and they probably will find a clan that will say, "Okay, stop here."
So they wouldn't necessarily be traveling with their own entire family. They might be coming along on their own.
Yeah. Well, this, I think, older people and independence, this is something that they want to have. They're not going to sit in the boat and have people paddle for them.
Right.
They want to carry themselves. And I think that's part of the pride, too, that they want to show.
These are very long-lived people. Today you're led to think you can't possibly live that long if you don't have the benefits of modern medicine and you don't have, fill in the blank, lots of things. It sounds though this was quite a normal thing, to live a very long life in the bush and the beach.
Well, which is harder, city life or bush life? And there's probably more stress in city life because the rent has to be paid, etc., etc. But in the bush life, if you're not being chased by the need to make money, when the company was here, when the fur trading people were here, when other people were here, like the religious people, demanded that you go to church every day. At the beginning, demanded and told you that if you don't go to church on Sunday, that was a mortal sin. So they had their own demands on the people. And then the Hudson Bay Company, they came in and said, you have to give me fur, otherwise I'm not going to give you food. And where are you going to get your food? And so that was a demand. And then the RCMP, they had their own instructions on the government. It wasn't very, very nice. And then the Ministry of, at that time, Lands and Forest, there was a ministry within the government. They had their own instructions from the government on us, which wasn't very nice either. And so they slowly took that away. Before that, when you're by yourself on the land, there are no demands, except the demands that you place on your clan community. And within that setting, your elderly people, they're supplied with wood, firewood, they're supplied with a shelter, they're supplied with food, they're supplied with clothing, and in exchange their legends and their stories. And again, the social setting. We're making a dress for Granny to wear next summer, stuff like that. And so they're being looked after. There's no demand for them to pay rent. to look for food, to heat their house, because the young people are busy doing that for them. Like they're giving them, make sure that they're looked after. So the old place, the old setting, is probably a lot more comfortable than today's setting, because today's setting, the elders are living in their own house, and they're looking after their rent, after their food, after after everything, and also giving money away to their small young grandchildren. So there's more demands on them today than there were in the old days. I think they were being more looked after in the old days than they are today. Sad to say, but it's what's happening, where they get income, they get their monthly income, and there's a lot of young hands there that go and say, give me my share. Yeah, it's not very nice to say, but unfortunately this is what happens. Money hasn't been a good thing for us.
For your people.
Yeah.
Has it been a good thing for anyone?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an artificial value. You really cannot save your life when you're drowning, and or give you strength when you're somewhere else. But I think the value is people. They can give you that value.
When you're talking about the older people, another thing that strikes me is that they have a function. There's a reason for them to be there, and they're respected. And in the sort of industrial world, they really don't have a function. They aren't particularly respected, and what they know, certainly about the way of making a living and that kind of thing, is out of date. And they really have not much to give to the young people in that sense. It's got to make you pretty unhappy, and it's not going to encourage your life, is it?
No. They're we see too much of this being placed in a separate setting and away from the bustle and activity and the noise, which is for them the meaning. That's why they brought children, is they want to hear that bustle. They want to hear that noise and screaming and yelling in the house. That's what they look for. They expect that. And they also accept a messy house, because the kids are there. Kids are doing their job. So they don't mind that. The noisier the better. And silence is quite intimidating for people. And so you do have to see them, you do have to visit them, and you do have to share, update their Facebook, or the stories, relationships. So who else is, what new babies are arriving, so they need all that. I think they need to be closer to the family than, separate dwellings. Must be very lonely.
You've lived in cities, several cities. You're quite familiar with that environment. I've been wondering lately, and I'm not sure what started this train of thought, but it certainly comes up here. A big piece of what industrial life means is based on fear. People are very frightened, and they would look at the life you had as a child and say, well, that would be scary, wouldn't it? Living in the woods with wild animals and so forth. But your picture of that is not scary. And what's striking to me is that I think people are afraid of being left old and alone and so on in the cities, and it's not, that was just never an issue.
No, it's, I think the land is home for those people that live on the land. They accept that no matter what the conditions are, they are adaptable, they anticipate, and they prepare, and they work hard and to maintain a condition which for them is satisfactory, for them is rewarding. So they don't stop working from sunrise to sunset. They're always working. And I know when my dad was coming home, because the sun is going down. It's now getting dark, so he will be arriving soon. And so we've been outside too. When my mother says it's time to go inside, I know the sun's going down, and it's time to go inside. So everybody, it's sort of a life with meaning, with the sun being very important, with the climate and the environment being very important, and people not coping, but basically just living within that environment, and trying to provide for themselves comfort and food, sustenance, and sort of a joy for the occupants of their shelter, and sort of prayer. And I think that's what the four things that they try to give each other. It's hard to do that in the city. There's no time.
Now that's a phrase that comes up in Hanaway.
There's a point where, and I think it's old Sina, she's heard this phrase for the first time in her life, there is no time. And I don't get the sense that that was ever an issue in the traditional world, was it?
And there's, time for what? Time is what you do. And you're never running behind time. And it's just something where you are. And when I say there's no stress, it's just because you don't give yourself that artificial yardstick of I have to be there or I have to achieve by a certain day or time. You're just there, and if you're warm, you're warm. You're well fed, and when I mentioned earlier about the Island of Giants, originally we were about 7 feet tall. Everybody was 7 feet tall. The Island of Giants, big people, well fed, sturdy, comfortable, in one place, settled in one place, so they could sort of, when it's time to harvest a whole bunch of caribou, the men would go, bring a whole bunch of caribou. Now you work in the community, fix the meat, fix the hides, and fix everything. After all that, you manufacture clothing, blankets, everything else, and the fur from the moose, the down from the geese. All these things were saved and used. So it was always that things you do before the spring, before summer, before fall, you're always working to prepare for the next season. But
it's not like having a deadline.
It's not the same as a deadline. And it's you don't have to work 4 hours a day or 8 hours a day. you work, and watch. When you're working on a moose hide, then you have to figure, okay, I have enough firewood, I have enough food, I have enough. The house is warm, my kids will be okay. I'll give myself a week to work on the moose hide, because you can't just leave it. You just got to continue the next process, the next process, the next process. And for the night, you just sort of leave it there and cover it up with something. Take it out early the next day and begin the process again. So give yourself 5 days to finish it. But you can't be thinking, oh, I don't have enough firewood. I don't have enough, We'll be running out. So you can't really. So you plan. You plan these things. But there's no pressure.
Well, it's not exactly pressure, is it? But there's a...
Well, yes, pressure, but a very light, steady pressure as opposed to a sharp, immediate pressure.
Well, what has to be done.
Yeah.
You know what has to be done.
Yeah.
So it's within 5 days you will do that, and you say, okay, second day, and I'm going to do this. Third day, I'm going to do that. No, I'm almost done. So it's the 4th day, and finally the 5th day, you're unraveling your finished product, and just testing the final outcome. So it's a process, and now you can go back into the other things. But there's no need to pay rent. There's no need to do this. For if you're a woman of the house, you don't have to think about food. That's the man's job, maybe to bring it. And so once it's in the house, then you take over from there. And everybody has a function. Everybody has a job to do. And
now you're in this traditional life as a young boy, and now comes the residential school, and you're what, 5, 6?
When you're
my dad
to school?
tried to keep me home as long as possible. and I used to hear him argue with the priest, you know, and just say, "You don't have any children, you don't need mine," stuff like that. And being very close to committing a mortal sin or blasphemy or stuff like that. But he used to make all kinds of excuses. So I heard him say, "Well, I'm going to bring him to the goose camp first," which is the goose camp is the fall activity between up to middle of November. And so I'm going to do that first. And so he tried as long as possible. So by the time I was 8, I guess I was strong enough to face that kind of thing. And so I remember the walk from our little house across the Tri-Channel. It's a walk for about, I guess for us, 20 minutes. Very quiet. His head was down, and I didn't bother him because he was thinking of a lot of stuff. It seemed to be very, very something about his demeanor that said he was thinking about something. He was struggling. He was fighting with himself. And so finally brought me into the school. A big, shiny brick building, lights in each window, and just very, very intimidating. And so we walked in, knocked on the door. Nun came in and took me in. She said, come in, very nice, very nice. And then she said, well, I'll go to the washroom. I went to the washroom. They were still talking, and then I heard the door close. I said, oh, did he forget me? And I opened that little window, and I see him walking away. I see him walking home. The head down, is very, very sad-looking man. And that memory is still yesterday. Behind me, I still drag that memory around with me, and never to be forgotten. No matter what I do, it's just not something that we'll forget. The washroom there where I was there, that will be fresh. I know where everything is within that washroom. So I hear a harsh voice from the hallway, and knocking on the door. Open the door, ask them, well, just come on. And so I walk out of the room, out of the washroom. She's on this side, and then she, bang, just my first slap. Within 2 or 3 minutes. That is my first slap, and I was just small compared to the nun. She knocked me on the side of the head with her hand like this, and knocked me against the wall. It bounced off the wall onto the floor. Get up and go, and so that was my introduction to the school. And so that kind of environment, that was to be the environment for the next 8 years. 10 months every year, and then 2 months to try and recover at home. But it was always that physical punishment was every day, out in the open, for indiscriminate, so anybody could get it, and the extremeness of it is based on how far you are from the community. So people away from the community received a lot more. And because my parents were in the bush, then I also got my share too. And then there's other forms of physical punishment, kneeling, squatting on the floor for long periods of time, and just standing out in the cold weather for during 40 below. Or some people talk about being locked in the outhouse, outside, or overnight. Those are the elders talking. And so it was a very severe form of undermining that stability that was being brought into my community, into my relations. Now my adults were now angry. They're very demeaning, insulting, and everything negative that you can think of, everything negative. And so the worth, my sense of self now was in the question all the time. Now I never knew if I was doing the right thing, if I was standing the right way, if I was, just performing to a certain level that was expected. it was never a performance that was ever the right way, the correct way. So I had difficult time with that. So you begin to live in fear. You question the way you stand, the way you look, the way you behave, the way you do about everything, everyday life. It's fear. 8 years of that, you're gonna come out as a very, very whipped pup, tail between the legs, very scared. And so this little pup that is very terrified. And if you ever seen an animal that's been abused anywhere else, their demeanor is they're very skinny, they're very small, their ears are down, and their body is down, their tails are tucked between the legs, and they're very close to the ground. They're closer to the ground, so it means they're very, very humble. And if you ever see that, and then you put them into an urban setting, yeah, that's another. Now you're already, you're bringing somebody that's been defeated, and then you put them into a strange environment, and then I suppose for them to be like the other students, which is impossible. They're defeated in the first place. And so we're in the high school among the urban white kids. We cannot behave in the way they behave. We don't know how to talk. We don't know what to say. We sort of hesitate. We'll pull away. We're shy. We're unsure all the time. And the skilled level is of social interaction. That's missing, because we've been told to be quiet all the time. So that's a lot of missing social skills are not there. And instead of helping us, we sort of made everything worse. So we couldn't really cope. And so that was also difficult. And we were prone to racist insults and falling under when people called us names. So we were very sensitive then. So that was hard.
Yeah.
And I only now deal with the physical stuff. And now, never mind the other stuff. It just attacks on our elders. Your grandmother looks like something. Your father doesn't know how to do this, and there's all your aunt is got drunk again last night, and there's always the bad news about our people. And it was forever an attack what used to make us strong and whole and gave us meaning. Now that's being chipped away and broken down all the time. And then when the sun goes down, now the predators, the sexual predators would come out. And nobody was got away from that. So it's so during the day it's quite a physical torture for everybody. Everybody's on their tiptoes, never knowing when they will get attention from the supervisor or from the teachers. Everybody was a nun that was teaching. In the evening, and there were 20 brothers of the Oblates and 20 sisters of the Grey Nuns, and so 40 adults in the compound, the religious compound. And I'm not saying all of them were bad, but there were a segment of them that were, pedophiles. And that's the only word you can use based on their activities at night. And everybody was prone to their weakness, and they selected their victims carefully, male or female, and at the same time they each had their little pet, the same person over and over again at different nights. And things, and like when I said everybody was sort of not excused from that kind of behavior, from the new arrival to the bishop of the order. They had their they had their time, they had their turn, and I suppose over a period of time and, you know, the human condition, I suppose they found a handy pick of people that to satisfy their appetite. And it happened, and a lot of people suffered because of that. The girls especially, they were the ones that, you know, got pregnant because of that activity. And unfortunately, there was to be no evidence of wrong behavior. So what do? Is get rid of the evidence, abort the child, and just get rid of the fetus, eliminate the fetus. No proper burial, no proper treatment for the fetus. And there was a handy furnace, a wood furnace that was used to heat the hospital. And one of our friends, she must be in her 65 now, she was impregnated by the bishop, and her child was aborted in a hallway leading to the furnace room. And when she woke up, she was all bloody and no fetus, and she had no idea what happened. But this is our guess that they got rid of the fetus, because there was no proper acknowledgement, no proper ceremony, nothing proper. And for her, it's an event that was never closed. She could never say goodbye to her child. And only mothers will realize, you know, the feeling of that. And I couldn't begin to describe her feeling, but only mothers can do that. And
you said she was back here and was wandering around the spot where that would have occurred.
We had so this happened about 1960, and then 30 years later, in 1992, we organized a conference, the St. Anne's Residential School Reunion and Conference. And the building was still there. The residential school building was still there, and so we held it not in the building, but we did have some activities in the building. But the main activity was a tent outside, because people still felt intimidated by the building. So they said, if we're gonna dance, if we're gonna play music, if we're gonna sing, do it outside, but within sight of the school. And they couldn't do that inside. So we erected a big tent, and we noticed Margaret walking around in that area. There's a little hump there now. She was walking around as if she lost something. She's looking around, just moving around, just looking at the grass and here and there and there. She definitely was looking for something. And it wasn't until later that she was able to tell us that, this is what happened to her. And she was just, this is what she was doing, looking for the fetus. It was this unfinished business for her. And she's not the only one. You know, other girls suffered that too. And it's 70 years is a long time for that kind of institution to be there, for that building to be there. And 70 years of that activity on our own great-grandmothers. They went to school. Our grandmothers went to school. Our parents went to school. So we all suffered that in our own in our own time. We all suffered different forms of abuse. Again, when you're trying to form character, you know, whatever you grew up, whatever you experience during the formative years, psychologists say this is what you are as an adult. And you know, just a lot of people still have difficulty with that. And today, when we say 60% of children in communities have been abused, sexually abused, 60% is a high number, and sometimes you could even say 100% have been sexually abused in the communities. Well, this is just an acting out of what they learned. And it's just, how can you break that? And the government has never done anything to come into the setting of these injured people and say, okay, in order to change your behavior, we're going to have to bring qualified people here. We're going to have to work with you. We're going to have to change and help you recover from that trauma. And so we're all basically just living our own lives and struggling with this every day, trying to find the normalcy, what should be normal. And I guess we create our own normalcy based on a lot of words from different people, but not really, you know. I guess our grandparents still speak to us, but they themselves, their normal has been taken away. Their sense of normalcy.
It's astonishing that anybody survives that kind of treatment, because you're really not giving us the full story that we find in Hanaway even. And that aspect of the book is just absolutely horrifying. And at the end of it, there are some phrases about how hard they have tried to destroy the people you were and have failed to do it, and that people like you were, and this is your phrase, staggering home to be healed. That's an astonishing achievement, isn't it? So how do you do that?
We discovered that the sweat lodge was still there. We discovered the shaking tent was not forgotten, and the night lodge, and the entities that I talk about, they were never gone. They were just waiting, and we are beginning to recover because they're talking to us, and we're talking to them, and we've established a link. And so you can beat up the body, you can abuse the body, but I don't think it's much more difficult to destroy the spirit of anybody, because the spirit will just step back and leave the body, watch the body being, beaten up. And then once that body is up and walking around again, the spirit will come back to it. So when we're away from the trauma, and we saw the residential school building burned down, and for us, so that took a lot of our fear away, the source of trouble, difficulty. So that was destroyed. And we were happy because of that. But now that we're out of there, now we have to recover. We have to recover everything. And I've really focused on this recovery myself by sitting with elders, talking to them, and trying to remember where we were, what did we do, and what did we make, and what was the, going back further and further and further. And they begin to talk about when we were wearing animal hide or animal skins. So that's how far the stories come back to. And so as you stand up from that, you want to find out what the ceremonies are too, what the meaning are. You're trying to experience them, try to understand them, and so pretty soon the curiosity goes away. You're no longer curious anymore. Now they have meaning. Now they have a substance. Now you go and see them in the sense that, okay, it's time for me to do this. It's time for me because it's now spring. I'm gonna go into a ceremony. Because it's summertime, I'm gonna go to this ceremony. Because it's fall, I'm gonna go to this one. Because it's winter, I'm gonna do this. So you begin to make a routine for yourself and reestablish a pattern for yourself, and also a pattern that you wish was always there, but you just want to establish a pattern so you can have that pattern and a routine. Because I think routine is very important. Routine is very important for everybody. Ritual routine. It's important because you won't feel satisfied until you know there's this coming fall. You're going to be doing this, so you better get ready for that. And in the spring, you got to get ready for that. And for your emotionally, you got to do that. Physically, you got to do that. Psychologically, you got to do that. And spiritually, you got to do that. So if you can arrive at that point in time where all those 4 elements are within your life, then you have achieved some sense of equilibrium. But that will take a long time. We're not there yet. We're still struggling, trying to do that. And you always scold yourself, I shouldn't be doing this, or I should have done that, or I should be doing a lot more. So we're still judging ourselves tremendously.
Oh, I'm sure. But you have brought a lot of that back into yourselves.
Yeah.
You really have taken big steps to recover what was taken from you.
Yeah, we're trying to, as we find out more and more, we see a big mountain of information that we still have to understand. And all we feel right now, we're just looking through a hole in the in the barrier, and we see our culture over there on the other side. So we know where we have to go, and we still have a long way to go. So it's there, but at least we see where we have to go. So we have a vision of where things could be.
One of the great ironies, it seems to me, is that the white culture was so arrogant, so sure it knew the way forward and that everybody should be like them. And what you see now is a world in which people like me are saying, wait a minute, the only way for us to get out of the mess that we've made in that way, and this is one aspect of it, is to go back to what your people knew in the first place. And somehow we have to get back to that sustainable way of living. And how ironic that we made such disgusting efforts to get rid of it. And it turns out to be what we need. It's what you have to bring to us now.
Well, it's there's meaning there. The land will protect you. What I don't find, what I can't understand today when I look around is the speed that we want to travel. It's the speed that we want to travel. And the speed that we want to eat. And it's the speed that we want to do things. And the speed that we want to teach and pass on information. It's always a speed, We're always behind what we want to do, and it's the speed. If we're going to do that, we're going to crash head on and do something. And there was no speed in the old days, because we are where we are. we are where we're supposed to be at this point in time, and if we want to, tomorrow will look after itself. Next day will look after itself. But it's the speed that people have to go through, and it's also the little small group of people, the board of directors, that command all the underlings to extract, find. And there's a big fat, person sitting at the top saying, feed me. And in our prophecy, it's this person at the top, whoever it might be. I'm not saying it's the leader of the country or anything like that. I think it's the leader of the system, which is a non-entity. It's not a living person. It's just the concept of this person that we have to feed all the time and bring stuff, extract, bring some more oil, bring some more diamonds, bring some more gold, bring some more stuff, and collect now. And then when we say, what about tomorrow? What about saving some for our kids? No, bring it now, bring everything now. We want it now. So that's what I mean when I say speed. We want it all today. For it sort of means to say for me, and but unfortunately, it doesn't go to me. it goes to some foreign group called the board of directors. They're the ones demanding all that. And it goes to, and I see bonuses, salaries, mansions, and maintenance of the mansion. You know, just a small group of people that demand more and more. And they want to eat more and more, and they want to eat exotic food, exotic drink, and you know, but nothing for the kids. So we're using everything up today.
Which is one of the key things about that old way of life we've been trying to talk about, because that was one of the key things in it, wasn't it? That what we do today, we do on behalf of generations yet to come. I think that was the phrase.
For those that are not yet born.
For those that are not yet born.
Yeah. So you always have the thing, you are living to ensure that the future generations, your unborn grandchild, you're still waiting to see that person. And when that unborn child arrives and is 20 years old, you want that child to have, you know, certain resources available for them. And especially that unborn child to have their great-grandchildren have those resources available in their lifetime. But while I'm here, I'm just going to keep this garden safe, nice and clean, and nice and, you know, healthy. That's my job. That's my job, is to keep it healthy, keep the garden healthy, you know, weed fixes and this and that. I can't wait for my grandchild to be born. You know, you're just fixing it. You're just always waiting for somebody else to use this. And in their lifetime, when they're here, this is what they're going to do too. I'm going to fix this so my grandchild can see it. So you're always only working for the unborn person.
And that way it can never fail.
It can never fail. It never stops.
Yeah.
So that's the concept of sustainability. You place yourself in need. You may not eat 3 times a day. Maybe you eat 2 times a day, just so you save some for the, you know, unborn
For those
children.
who are not yet born.
So
Thank you.
That's the outlook.
Edmund Metatawabin, former chief of the Peetabeck First Nation in Fort Albany, Ontario, a man who grew up in the completely sustainable forest society that the Cree had developed over millennia. Living as we do, in an industrial society struggling to become sustainable, we have a lot to learn from people like Edmund. If you found this interview rewarding, you may want to hear our interviews with Aboriginal educator Gregory Kahita or with deep ecologist David Orton. For the Green Interview, I'm Silver Donald Cameron. Thanks for watching.